Truth Seekers is excited to have Jonny Massey on this week's conversation, talking about PACE, P-A-C-E. A little bit about John, passionate about people and having creative vision. These two things have allowed him to carve out a life, becoming president and financial coach at Ascendancy Financial Group, or AFG, and also serving as a rock singer-songwriter, branded under the publishing company name Jonny Massey Music. John helps his clients, their companies, and their families intentionally accelerate their paths to self-actualization. John released an album in 2019 with his old band, the Pleasure Kings, who can be heard in the background right now, with their song Come Back Morning. As a solo artist and with his current band Reason for Being, John works mostly in the studio developing music for licensing in films, TV, and for commercial use. John also has an ongoing multimedia music history project mapping the DNA of American music from 1600 to 1959. We'll let John's song take us into this week's conversation. Pace with Jonny Massey. Welcome back to another episode of Truth Seekers. Of course, Coach Nick and myself, Coach Josh, we are joined today by John. And today's topic is going to be pace. We're talking about pace today. Life can get so fast. I personally am spearheading a 60 for 60 meditation challenge, a little bit on the extreme, 60 minutes consecutively for 60 days in a row of meditation. But we all have our ways of slowing down. Life can get so fast. And I'd like to introduce and ask our first question to our guest here, John, because we were talking about spirituality before we hit the record button here. John, what's a good way? I mean, you've accomplished so much in your professional journey. What's a good way that you're able to slow things down?
Practices of different kinds, but meditation is a great one. I practice a form of Japanese Buddhism, so it's a little unusual unless you do it, which actually, it involves chanting, but you sit in one place for 5 or 10 minutes, and that's almost the main part of it, right? Like the meditation, and you focus on different things when you're meditating. I don't know. I can't stop thinking about stuff I want to think about when I meditate, but I'm a lot mellower about it, and it passes through you, to actually get it where it's quieting. I don't know. I haven't quite gotten to that point where I'm quieting it, but it slows down quite a bit, and you can ruminate, right? You want to get in a space where you can, if you're not going to stop thinking, you think about almost the same thing, but it's like a wave, and it comes at you, and you think it over, and it goes out. That's ideal, and you have to have time that's sealed to do it. You can do it when you're driving. Anything where you're kept from you're doing something like breathing or just living for 5 or 10 minutes, but you're really not doing anything else that's productive. That's ideal. Exercise, yoga, lovemaking, those kind of things are great for that kind of freeing the mind.
Yeah, I love the imagery of the wave. Does that resonate with you, Nick?
Yeah, it's rumination. I love that word anyway. But then, then the wave. It's funny, isn't it? Because I'm thinking of both sides of it as well. It's like freeing the mind, but also trapping the mind, because you're creating that space where you can't. You're just not seeing all of these things. You're just seeing everything at an ease. So it's like almost think of it that way around as well. That sealed time, like you said, John. I thought that was really interesting to think about. And I love the concept of exercise and moving your body as well, because I never used to like massages. And for me, massages weren't really about, like people said, massages feel good. It doesn't really do anything for me. But what's great is I found that I have a massage, and by the time I'm done, I've like figured 10 things out. Because like my mind is like, oh, that's it just lets itself go on a path, and I found that really helpful. So yeah, definitely resonate with the things you said there for sure.
The massage is actually one of my, I forgot to mention that, but it's incredibly effective because it's we're beings, right? We are flesh and blood. And so it's mind, body, spirit, it's breathing, it's relaxing, it's not shutting off the mind to me. So I love to get a massage, like an hour and a half, and just take giant breaths. I get deep tissue massage where if you don't breathe properly, and you're going to scream a couple times. I mean, I get really good therapists that I believe in, and I know they know what they're doing. And so you scream once in that spot and then it's loose, but you're breathing through it. I'm kidding about the screaming. You don't let yourself scream. You're going all the way through it, just like a wave. I mean, the breath is like a wave. And I get my very best, most clear, relaxed ruminations about stuff. And that's that's better than exercise. It's a different kind of exercise. There really is no best or better way, because there's yoga that's just amazing, because mind, body, spirit, right? So just sitting there is great, meditating, but it almost doesn't, it doesn't get every spot. It's not as efficient as a lot of other things, because you're getting everything going at once, but it's all practice. Whatever the practice is that someone likes and it works for them, and they need more than one.
Yeah. So what you're saying, John, there isn't a silver bullet fix for everything?
There's multiple silver bullets.
Come on, there must be
multiple silver bullets. There's not going to be one for you. Hopefully there's at least one that each person can have, but why not have 10?
Yeah.
So, John, what do you think it is about those things? Like, we just listed off a number of different things. Why, like, we inevitably come out the other side in a different place than where we began. And, it might not be perfect. We're not quieting our minds totally or whatever, but like Nick's saying, at the end of the massage, like 10 new ideas, 10 solutions. What is it about that process that elicits those results, do you think?
Well, I think it's a biophysical thing, because you're taking giant deep breaths and you're over oxygenating, and you just don't have the computer in front of you. You're not having a conversation with someone. You're really, with your own thoughts or non-thoughts. And it's a rare thing. It's a rarefied thing, right? Like, it has to be, it's not just going to happen. Although if you're driving somewhere, you could find that even if you're not a meditator or what have you, it's not trapped. It's, you're traveling, you take a train, you're on a plane, you're accomplishing something, but it's taken care of for you. So you can sit back and take that moment. And so I think it is a literal mind, body, spirit. I mean, I think that there's a biochemical, spiritual, intellectual thing that can go on when we give ourselves a second to do it, And so whatever that is,
that's the key, right? Just giving that second. Like, how many of us just keep ripping through life, and there's
have the confidence, have the trust, because there's people who don't, like the three of us, I guess, have done some practicing of things.
Sure.
But there's people maybe who haven't realized it, and those are people who can really, whatever their things are, can improve and can bring so much accelerated clarity with that. So I don't like to preach about much, except people should go for their thing. But yeah, I mean, these kind of practices are pretty, if I'm talking to someone as a coach myself, right, in my own business, I'm trying to psych them up. So I could bring in meditation. I could talk about any of that stuff, even if, because it's okay. Not politics. Not politics. That's where the line gets drawn. But religion and spirituality, I'll talk about with clients all the time. Art, philosophy, is tough. I'd rather talk about religion than philosophy, believe it or not. Anyway.
Yeah, well, so I think the concept with that is, like, I like the trapped versus untrapped model, because it's the idea of letting the mind go where it needs to go. It's almost like our truth seekers conversation here. Like, we give a little structure with the topic, but we let it flow where it needs to flow. And that's the concept with, you talk about mind, body, spirit. Think about being out in nature. There's no agenda. You're not looking to accomplish anything. You don't have a meeting to attend. So that focus almost is the trap of when you're at work or when you're working on something.
You got to
Like,
find a better word than trap, though.
okay, what should we
Too
use?
neg. It's too neg. Yeah, it's traps. Well, let's think about that. Let's think about that. You can't be flowing and be in a trap.
Yeah.
You're just in an alternate reality known as not hustling for a second.
Yeah. I think that is exactly it, is because that there's that middle ground, which is not one or the other. It's just that playing in that beautiful space where you've created the scenario to play freely in, and that inherently is creating a structure or creating a trap to be free. And obviously the language of being trapped is something we associate negativity to, but what we're saying is that you just got to create some sort of concept to play within the freedom. It's like you can, it's like kids playing in one of those adventure playgrounds where everything's kind of got big soft things on the side of it, so you can just do whatever you want here because you can bounce off the side and it won't hurt. That's kind of how it feels for me. It's like maybe it's creating an adventure playground for your mind. Go wherever you want.
Cool. Sounds good.
So, John, what do you think it is? Like, when we have so much to accomplish, why is it the last thing, or is it? Like, maybe for me, it's a little bit of a challenge, but since you've been doing it for a while, has it been a challenge for you, or how have you conquered that?
Well, that's why I call it a practice, right? So it's like an Eastern thing where a practice means it's a habit's not the right word, but it's something that you do regularly, right? So the chanting I do is something that I do in the morning. And do I do it every day? I don't. 4 times a week, 5 times a week. The weekends when I end up missing it because I do it to get psyched up to go to work and, do my thing. So, that's a practice. Someone who's goes for a walk every morning for an hour. There are people who do that, or go for a run, or go to the gym, right? That's a practice, and that's it, right? So working out really does count, because we're talking about really getting the mind free, right? Giving the mind a moment to be free. So it's really anything that doesn't have to engage the mind. So you can be at the gym and you could be, meditating, that you could be doing this practice of freeing your mind. And that's why I'm saying that there's plenty of people who do that, and it is the best time, and they'll tell you that they feel the best, they think the best, they think the clearest, but they wouldn't think that it's the same or anything like meditation just because they don't know. But it really is, right? It really is similar to that kind of thing. So yeah, it's making the time, and ideally it's making the time in a human organized practiced way. Because if we just do it randomly or do it, that's
You're there.
stay for the love making.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean,
it's in the world that we live, and so then you gotta be really intentional about it, because we live in such a world where everything's going like this. You've got to schedule your free mind time, or it will not happen. It will not happen. So that's agree. I mean,
yeah, I mean that's the other part of it, right? That's the adventure house, like that's the playground. It's like scheduling it is the tiny bit of structure you need to be free. But as you said, it won't be there, and that
you ought to be intentional and make
yeah,
sure it happens. Just like the hard work,
intentionality.
just like the grinding hard work that we do, and maybe not all of us, but that you are intense and you're doing anything but meditating, because
Yeah.
you're applying the wisdom that you got. And I don't even mean like I made a to-do list in my mind while I was meditating, but like you get a wisdom that you can't even put words into. It's just that then if you do it enough and get good enough at it in your regular day-to-day, and you're doing what would normally be grinding, you still ideally, if you really got it down, it's like the Matrix, and you're doing your job, right? And you're thinking, and you're not just being, freeing your mind. You're tied into things, but you learn how to imbue it, or it just imbues into your way of being, that you're mellower you're attacking, but you're mellower at the same time. It's Zen. You become more Zen, and you become more empathetic, probably, and you become wiser to make quicker, better, more sound decisions, which is very efficient. And then you can become more efficient and find more time to be free.
Coach and I talk a lot about this concept of tyranny of the urgent, just all these things that attack us, that demand our attention on a daily basis, text, emails, phone calls, family members, all these people that need something from us. And there's a lot of resistance to, like, oh, the solution is to slow down. What? Like, you're crazy. So Nick, what would you say to somebody that is resistant to trying something or changing the pace? Like, they want to speed the pace up. So what would you say to them?
Yeah, it's a bizarre thing, isn't it? Like all of the things that I was writing down and thinking about, John, as you were sharing that, it's the consistency, it's the practice. Like practice, I love it, the word, I use it often, practice or conditioning. It's practice because it's never done. It's never complete. It's continuous. And think about that when it comes to creating success in our business or any part of our lives. We know that consistency is key. So it's doing those things over and over. But you want to do it from a way where you can see it and it's sustainable. And so that allows you, so if you do that slower, you can feel it in that pace, which is more sustainable. So it's almost like you do things slower, but you're actually doing things faster, as in you're getting more stuff done because you're leverage versus effort. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So I think from someone who's in that tyranny of the urgent, it's so difficult to see. So the first thing is to create some space. Perhaps the question might be, okay, so you're working super hard and you're thinking about trying to do more stuff. The way that you think things are now, before trying to shove more stuff in there, are they good? So if you put more on top of it, is it going to get better or is it going to get worse? And it's just, are you open to feeling different about that? And for some people, it might not. They might not be, and that's absolutely fine. By the way, it's like if you're there, that's cool. That's absolutely fine. It's just
you can also share the wisdom and share the work and spread it out and have people. You want to be in your sweet spot. I know I'm speaking your language. You want to be in your sweet spot, and so you want everybody around you to be that, and they're going to be closer to that Zen naturally by being in the sweet spot.
Yeah,
and it's just. It really is a convincing thing, and it really is like a wrestling match to a certain extent with the overachiever, quote unquote, and the workaholic and what have you. That's a tough one. That's really where you guys come in.
Yeah.
Where it's really a mind change. It's in the beginning, it's almost like self-hypnosis. It's like you've got to do it you've got to kind of free yourself, and that's why people, I guess, go on retreats or something where you're forced to get an intensive of some kind. It's tricky stuff. I know it took me years. It took me years to combine what we're talking about. So it's actually a pretty good subject for me, because I used to be much wilder and just uninterested in working that hard and being more like clutch, doing things clutch at the last minute and just having a really good time besides for then, right? To then being really wanting to tighten it up, saying finally, whatever it is, I got bored with being just, half slacker and said, let's really try to do this very well. And so that sort of almost, I'm at the tail end or at the next pop up from there, where I've worked really hard, built stuff and grinded, and have felt not all that relaxed and have lost sight of the kind of pacing that I know I could work in. And then the last few years, it's just become where, enough of a practice. But it's taken years for me because I'm not that quick a learner, but I just don't quit.
Yeah.
That's the consistency, right? And it's two ends of a spectrum. It's not just left and then right. Like there's a whole portion of it through the middle as well, and it's a long spectrum to think about, right? Because you're working over here on your sweet spots where you can see that stuff, and you're like, I'm actually moving slower but getting more done, and it feels better. All the way to the other side, in that tyranny of the urgent, when you're in that tyranny of the urgent, you can't even fathom the other side. It's so far away, right? And so it's like being two sides of a bridge or a big chasm down the middle. It's like I'm on one side, there's a bridge, and then the other side, I can't think about being the other side, but maybe I can take a couple of steps across the bridge. And that's what I think we hope to invite for people to start thinking about. Like, what if you made a couple of different changes here and there? I know you're busy, but what if you just took one thing out? And what would happen? Let's just find out. Because when you are in your sweet spots where you are, John, and things you're sharing is so cool, because it's a great example of what that can feel like and be like, and you're sharing it, I'm sure will resonate with lots of people. But it's a long journey to get to that.
Well, but I mean, I think it's different for different people, and
Absolutely.
I would hope that. I mean, do you guys have some ideas of how to accelerate it? Because it's possible, and if you get the right person who is motivated to improve, not just be successful, but to improve their own way of doing things and improve, like they want to be happy. Some people, I'm not sure they want to be happy, but that they want to be more enlightened about themselves and what they do, and still keep kicking ass, pardon the expression,
Right.
because that's fun to do. Because that's fun to do too.
Yeah.
But how do you accelerate it? Right.
Well, I think. Sorry to jump in. I think part of our job is to remind people that they want to be happy. Part of what we do is like, hey, by the way, excuse me, person running around like crazy. Do you remember you do want to be happy? Oh yeah, because it's so easy to get caught up in that, and I'm being facetious, but like it really is that comes from that place.
What that really means, right? What that really means, because when you're grinding, you forget what it even is. And I know that well, to be, you're just putting off the happiness part. So at times maybe it's okay, because it's good to be intense, but for, have a decade go by and be like, wow, and it can happen, man. It can happen.
Oh, yeah.
This hair used to be black. There was a time when this hair was black. It was a while ago.
So, I want to get into start getting some takeaways here. I did have one other thing I wanted to share, because this goes to pace and Nick, your quote, remind me again. You said slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
I like that. I listened to another podcast recently. Tim Ferriss had, I think it's Hugh Jackman on. They talked about the 80% rule. I talked to you, Coach, about this.
Oh,
John,
I love it.
The 80% rule.
80-20.
No, this is separate. So this has to do with it's about sprinter Carl Lewis. I'm sure we've heard of Carl Lewis. Back in the day, whoever won the first, whatever it was, 10 to 20 meters in the sprint won the race. And Carl Lewis was winning races, and he was behind in the first section of the race, and it was blowing people's minds. And only when they set a camera at the finish line and like shot down at the runners, did they see like what was happening. And his strategy was to run at 80% of his max capacity. It was the max capacity at his comfort level of running. So everybody else is straining, running, and they try to put it into this other gear, and he's staying true to his pace, and he's winning races that way, and he's actually moving faster than everybody else. So that slow, smooth, fast really resonates with me in that example. So anyways, maybe that'll be my takeaway. So John, if you had some sort of takeaway from this conversation, or maybe even some guidance for some other people, what would it be regarding pace?
I would mainly say you should find something that maybe you're already doing, and just realize what's happening, and become aware of how you can control time almost by giving yourself a chance to breathe, think, and let that wave and momentum build in a wise way, in a way of getting wisdom, and magical things can happen. Magical things can happen if you've got to do it a few times to realize it. So it takes a little bit of faith.
How about you, Coach?
Yeah, just so many principles being enacted again today, as usual. It's about that, and I've got to come back to the intentionality of how we're spending our time. If you want more, it's not about doing more. It's about really seeing where you're spending your time. And John, to lay that over your point, where do you need to spend that time to give you the space that all the other time that you're using becomes more impactful. Maybe it's something you're doing already. Maybe it's something you can create the time, and it doesn't need to be much, but something to give you back to that self where it's not as, and I said spending time, and we often say spending time because once it's gone, it's gone. But maybe think about those times as where you're investing the time into you.
Love it.
Nice.
Anything else, guys? All right. Well, thank you for joining us on Truth Seekers. We'll see you next week.
Thanks. Thank you so much, guys, for having me. I really had a lot